JT Wistrell of Locked On Utes. Mark Harlan in November after the BYU game came to the podium, said we were excited to be in the Big 12 tonight. That we're not. He was very upset that the game was stolen from us. We have beaten that dead horse as much as you can. Had that conversation multiple times. This is less about that and more about what could be, from, I think, a Utah fan's point of view, a double standard. Bear with me a second while I give you context of JT Toppin, basketball player for Houston, or I should say, for Texas Tech, jumps in the air to throw a pass, hits the nether region of a Houston player with his leg. Referees called a flagrant 2. In a very confusing deal, they throw him out of the game. From there, Grant McCasland, the head coach of Texas Tech, flips out. He gets ejected. Toppin's ejected. The athletic director posts, Kirby Hocutt posts, "I'm appalled, disappointed, egregious decision." He ripped into the officials. He says he called Brett Yormark immediately. Brett Yormark said the situation would be addressed. There would be accountability. He says they're proud of the leadership of Coach McCasland. That's a lot different than how the Big 12 responded to Mark Harlan. They came and said, Mark Harlan, you owe the largest fine we've ever given to an AD in this conference's history. Whereas, according to Hocutt, Yormark says there will be accountability, but not for you for complaining, for the officiating crew. Is this a slap in the face to Utah?
No, it's a completely different situation. I mean, you look at what Mark Harlan deserved.
Whoa, watch out. Here we go now.
I got a lot of respect for Mark Harlan. He absolutely deserved his fine. And also actions speak louder than words, right? The Texas Tech athletic director waited till after the game to then make a statement and put it out. And he said he was appalled and upset over a decision. Mark Harlan was so appalled and upset over a decision, he made himself part of the story. He walked onto the field, the final TV shot, you see him yelling at the refs, and his post-game comments, they're so different than like, "I'm appalled by this decision," Texas Tech's AD. How about Mark Harlan? This game was absolutely stolen from us. We were excited about being in the Big 12, but tonight I am not. That right there, especially the loud one. When you say you are not excited to be in your new conference, you can't do that. Like you know what's happening at that point when you make a statement like that to me. So to me, this is a way different situation. I'd love to say like this is unjust, but no, Mark, we've seen athletic directors do what happened with Texas Tech. We have not seen. I mean, Drake, can you remember an athletic director saying, and this just comes to the new conference realignment, right? Like, we're not happy to be in this conference today. He did, I do believe, just watching it back, he specifically meant today, like in this exact moment, this minute, right. All of that. But the end of the day, you cannot say that about a conference you just joined or just a conference in general. So Mark deserved his fine. I do believe that.
Very interesting. Do you feel as though Kirby Hocutt he holds no punches back? I mean, he posts publicly appalled, disappointed, egregious. He says the officials were bad, were terrible. The head coach, Grant McCasland, gets kicked out. He fit of rage publicly. Like, I don't want to say embarrassed himself necessarily, because if you watch it back, and to be honest with you, JT, if you watch back some of those calls against BYU, Utah fans would make the case that those were egregious, right? And if Mark Harlan had come out and said in a statement, this was egregious, we're appalled, I still see a lot of similarities between some of the verbiage used. One was a Twitter graphic, one was post-game on the podium. I think if Hocutt had been in the arena and taken the microphone and said this same thing, we're probably talking about a different story. It's almost a situational deal where, let's say Mark Harlan was on vacation with his family that week or at a wedding for his niece, and he had put a Twitter graphic out. Maybe he's not fined. To me, there is a bit of a double standard there where one guy is going to be fined because of what he said, and via the platform he said it on at a podium, as opposed to a Twitter graphic, whereas the words are still fairly similar.
At the end of Drake, who dishes out the fines at the end of the day? Not just the Big 12, but who does this start with? All of it.
Brett Yormark? What do you think?
Brett Yormark. And who did Kirby Hocutt go to? He went to Brett Yormark. He spoke to him, the decision. He said, I spoke with him, assured me the situation would be addressed. He went about this a different way versus what did Mark Harlan do? He directly called out the entire league. And once again, this goes back to the reason these two situations are totally different is one is talking about specifically a call made, never once says, we are disappointed to be in the Big 12 at this moment.
Yeah.
The other says that. And when you take a shot at the conference as a whole, that's where you're going to draw that fine at the end of the day. So to me, that is the clear difference between these two. And also, I also feel like Texas Tech, I'm just being real. Like, I think they were more justified in their frustration. I think that, and we've talked about this a lot, I wish they would have let the hold go. Yes, but there is more of a grab versus how things played out. I do understand their frustration because he is jumping, trying to get the ball, ends up kicking him in an unfortunate spot. So that's how I view this, as just a different situation. And I'm good with their decision not to fine him at all. I don't feel like it's a slap in the face because, look, it's just, you can't go out there, criticize your boss and Brett Yormark. Well, he's not Mark Harlan's boss, but you know what I mean? Like, but just someone you're in a partnership with and expect no repercussions to the level, like literally calling them out saying we're not happy here versus saying, hey, your officials did a bad job. To me, that's different the way they went about it. Hocutt went about the right way. Mark Harlan didn't, simply put.
Can then Mark Harlan rip a page out of Hocutt's book? Is this where we all, and not even Harlan to call out, a Jamie Pollard at Iowa State or anybody else in this conference who holds an athletic director role, can they all rip a page out of Kirby Hocutt's book and say, okay, that's how we should do it from now on when we're mad?
Absolutely. As there's not a fine, that's absolutely how I should do it. And I do think look, being a ref's hard. Like, there's a human element. You're going to make mistakes and you have to be held accountable. And I think it's okay to call out and say, hey, this wasn't right. And it's also okay for, in that statement, like, to admit, like, hey, Brett, I've talked to Brett Yormark and he said they will be addressing this and going over it. I don't doubt that they're going to review this and take a better look at it and make an outcome from there. So I have no problem with other teams doing this. I don't have a problem. It's like I said, once again, it's about what Mark Harlan did, right? Like, surprising everyone coming up to the podium, saying it there. Mark, I think there's been controversial calls in the past where Mark Harlan has put out a statement like, we're disappointed in this and we're going to explore an explanation with the Pac-12. That is how these things normally play out. Mark Harlan diverted from that path, and that's where he ended up getting himself in that trouble in the end. So, but I do expect more Big 12 coaches, athletic directors to do this, and I don't think there's any problem with that, because I think it's good when we can call each other out and try to hold each other in check to make sure mistakes like this don't happen in the future, because I don't think the situation that happened with Texas Tech is going to happen again, at least not this season.
I hope not. And accountability is huge when it comes to officiating crews and what we consider to be the best college basketball conference in America. And that looks diluted this year, but still the officiating, I think Utah fans have probably seen it. I know for sure that BYU fans seem to be complaining often about it. And rightfully so for all of us. The last 5 years, I've just facepalm watching one out of every 3 or 4 Big 12 games because the officiating is so inconsistent in a very physical league. Hocutt to say that is something that I feel comfortable also saying. I'll say it on a microphone or on a Twitter graphic, and I don't really care. I think he's got a very good point, drove it home, and you're right. I mean, this is something that man, an egregious call like that shouldn't happen again. And you would hope, because of these actions, because the conference holds them accountable, it won't happen again. Coming up, Utah picked number 1 in the Big 12 this offseason by 2 different major outlets. This is Locked On Big 12 and the Locked On Utes podcast in a crossover. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.